The ancient brass bell above the door chimed one last time as my cousins strode out of Harrison's Antiquities and Curiosities, their laughter echoing off the cramped shelves of what was now my inheritance. I stood alone in the dimly lit shop, surrounded by what they called worthless junk, my Uncle Theodore's lifetime collection of antiques and artifacts. "Have fun with your pile of dust, Sophie," Jennifer's voice carried through the door. "While you're cleaning, we'll be renovating the mansion." I ran my fingers along a nearby mahogany display case, leaving trails in the dust. At 32, I was the black sheep of the Harrison family, the one who'd chosen to study archaeology instead of business, who'd spent years on digs while my cousins climbed corporate ladders. Now, Uncle Theo's death had brought us all back to Boston, and his will had shocked everyone. To my beloved niece, Sophie Harrison, I leave my antique shop and all its contents the lawyer had read yesterday while my aunts and cousins sat in stunned silence. To Jennifer and Michael Harrison, I leave the family mansion and its grounds, along with my liquid assets. The monetary difference was staggering. The mansion alone was worth millions, not counting Uncle Theo's substantial bank accounts. The shop? It had been struggling for years, barely breaking even. My cousins thought Uncle Theo was punishing me with this gift, but they didn't know Uncle Theo like I did. I remembered the summer afternoons I'd spent here as a child, listening to Uncle Theo's stories about each artifact. He taught me to see beyond the surface, to understand that value wasn't always measured in dollars and cents. "Every object has a story," he'd say, his eyes twinkling behind wire-rimmed glasses. "You just have to know how to read it." Now, standing in the fading afternoon light, I could almost hear his voice among the shadowed shelves. The shop was exactly as he'd left it, a maze of display cases and wooden cabinets, filled with everything from Victorian silverware to ancient Egyptian scarabs, reproductions, of course, or so we'd always thought. I made my way to his office at the back of the shop, navigating the narrow aisles with practiced ease. The small room was a testament to organized chaos. Books stacked in precarious towers, maps covering every inch of wall space, and his beloved roll-top desk dominating the corner. That's when I noticed something odd. The ancient Persian rug, the one Uncle Theo had always said was his most valuable possession, was slightly askew. In 20 years of visiting this office, I'd never seen that rug out of place. Uncle Theo had been almost obsessive about its positioning. Kneeling down, I rolled back the heavy fabric. There, carved into the wooden floorboard, was a small symbol. A circle within a square, exactly like the pendant Uncle Theo had always worn. The one that had mysteriously disappeared after his death. My heart began to race. Uncle Theo had been more than just an antique dealer. He'd been a scholar, a collector of mysteries, and I'd always suspected something more. His stories had often hinted at secret societies and hidden treasures, tales I dismissed as flights of fancy. But now, I ran my fingers over the carved symbol, remembering something he told me years ago. "Sometimes, Sophie, the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight. You just need the right key to see them." The key, the strange brass key he'd left me in his will, along with a cryptic note I hadn't yet opened. I'd assumed it was to the shop's front door, but now, I pulled both items from my bag, the ornate key with its unusual teeth, and the sealed envelope with my name written in Uncle Theo's elegant hand. The paper was thick, expensive, with that same circle and square symbol watermarked in the corner. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal and unfolded the letter. "My dearest Sophie, if you're reading this, then two things have happened. I've left this world for the next great adventure, and you found the mark beneath the Persian rug. I always knew you would. You have the gift, the ability to see what others miss. What I'm about to tell you must remain secret. Your cousins, your aunts, the entire family, they cannot know. Not yet. The shop isn't just a shop, Sophie. It's a gateway, a repository of secrets that go back centuries. The Antiquarian Guild has protected these secrets for generations, and now that responsibility passes to you. But beware, there are those who would kill for what lies hidden here. Trust no one until you've seen the truth for yourself. Use the key, follow the signs, and remember what I taught you about reading the stories in objects. The first step is behind my bookshelf, the one with the treatise on Mediterranean pottery. The key will fit a lock you cannot see until you know where to look. All my love and all my trust, Uncle Theo. P.S. If Jennifer and Michael are being their usual charming selves about the inheritance, don't let it bother you. They have no idea what they've missed. I read the letter 3 times, my mind spinning. The Antiquarian Guild. Hidden secrets. It sounded impossible, like something from a movie. But Uncle Theo had never been one for practical jokes, and that symbol. Standing up, I moved to the bookshelf he'd mentioned. It looked ordinary enough, old volumes on pottery, archaeology, and art history. But when I ran my fingers along the edges, I felt something. A slight irregularity in the wooden frame, right at eye level. Looking closer, I noticed tiny marks carved into the wood, so faint they were nearly invisible. They formed a pattern similar to the one on the floor, but more complex. In the center was a small depression that looked like. My hands shaking, I inserted the brass key. It fit perfectly. But before I could turn it, I heard voices outside the shop. Loud, angry voices. Through the office window, I saw 3 men in dark suits examining the shop's facade. They weren't family, and they definitely weren't customers. "The old man's dead," one said, his voice muffled through the glass. "If it's here, now's our chance." I froze, the key still in the lock. Uncle Theo's warning echoed in my mind. There are those who would kill for what lies hidden here. The bell above the shop door chimed. They were inside. I had seconds to decide, turn the key and step into whatever mystery Uncle Theo had left for me, or face the men who were even now making their way through the shop. The key turned silently in the lock, and everything I thought I knew about Uncle Theo, about my inheritance, about reality itself, was about to change forever. Because what I found behind that bookshelf would not only solve a centuries-old mystery but would also put me in the crosshairs of people far more dangerous than my spoiled cousins. People who would stop at nothing to claim what Uncle Theo had protected for so long. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand what happened next, you need to know about the summer I turned 12, when Uncle Theo first showed me the secret language of symbols hidden in everyday objects. When he first hinted at the true purpose of his little antique shop. And most importantly, you need to know about the ancient society that had been watching our family for generations, waiting for someone like me to finally unlock the truth. The bookshelf swung silently inward, revealing a narrow passage that shouldn't have existed in a building I thought I knew by heart. Behind me, heavy footsteps approached the office. I slipped through the opening, pulling the shelf closed just as shadows appeared under the office door. The passage was pitch black for a moment before soft lights activated along the floor, revealing a metal staircase descending into the earth. The air was cool and dry, carrying a faint scent of old paper and something else. Something ancient. Above, I heard muffled voices in Uncle Theo's office. Search everything. The old man must have left some clue about the collection's location. I descended the stairs as quietly as possible, counting the steps. 27. Uncle Theo's favorite number. At the bottom, I found myself in a room that defied belief. It was vast, far larger than the shop's foundation should have allowed. Climate-controlled glass cases lined the walls, filled with artifacts that made my archaeological training scream in disbelief. These weren't the reproductions we displayed upstairs. These were real. A perfectly preserved Greek amphora from the 5th century BCE. A complete set of samurai armor that predated the Kamakura period. Celtic torques that still gleamed with their original gold. And in the center of the room, a massive wooden table covered in maps, documents, and a state-of-the-art computer system that hummed quietly. "Oh, Uncle Theo," I whispered, "what were you really doing all these years?" On the table lay a leather-bound journal, recently used. I recognized Uncle Theo's handwriting. Final entry. They're getting closer. The Brotherhood thinks the collection is just artifacts, but they don't understand its true purpose. Sophie will figure it out. She has the gift, just like her grandmother did. The pattern in the Byzantine mosaic will lead her to. The entry ended abruptly. Next to the journal sat an old photograph I'd never seen before. Uncle Theo, decades younger, standing with a group of distinguished-looking people in front of an ancient temple. They all wore pendants with the circle and square symbol. A loud crash echoed from upstairs. They were tearing the office apart. I quickly scanned the room, looking for anything that might explain what I'd stumbled into. My eyes landed on a Byzantine mosaic fragment mounted on the wall. The one mentioned in Uncle Theo's final entry. Unlike the other artifacts, this piece seemed wrong somehow. The pattern didn't follow traditional Byzantine designs. Drawing on my training, I studied the mosaic's geometry. The tiles formed repeating patterns that seemed random at first, But as I looked closer, I realized they were a code. Numbers and letters hidden in plain sight using an ancient cipher system I'd studied during my doctorate. When translated, they read, "The collection guards the gate. The gate guards the truth. In unity lies the key to both." Below the mosaic sat an ancient wooden chest, its surface carved with the same circle and square symbol. Unlike everything else in the room, this chest had gathered dust, as if Uncle Theo had wanted it to appear unremarkable. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside lay hundreds of letters, documents, and photographs dating back centuries. Each bore the symbol of what I now realized must be the Antiquarian Guild. As I read through them, an incredible story emerged. The Guild wasn't just a society of collectors. They were guardians protecting artifacts that proved an alternative history of human civilization. Evidence of advanced ancient knowledge that could revolutionize our understanding of the past, and possibly threaten the foundations of modern power structures. A sealed envelope addressed to me sat at the bottom of the chest. Inside was a USB drive and another note from Uncle Theo. "Sophie, if you're reading this, you found the true inheritance. The collection isn't just artifacts, it's proof. Proof that human civilization is far older and more advanced than we've been led to believe. Proof that certain technologies and knowledge have been rediscovered and lost multiple times throughout history. The Brotherhood of the New Dawn wants to use these artifacts to control this knowledge, to maintain their power over history itself. The Guild has fought them for centuries, preserving the truth until humanity is ready for it. Your cousins got the mansion because that's what they value, material wealth. But you, my dear, have inherited something far more precious, the truth and the responsibility to protect it. The USB drive contains everything you need: accounts, contacts, security protocols. The Guild will reach out once you've processed this information. Trust them, but verify everything. Remember what I taught you about questioning even the most basic assumptions. Your grandmother was one of our greatest members before she disappeared. Now you know why I spent so much time training you, preparing you for this moment. The gift runs in our blood, the ability to see patterns others miss, to read the stories hidden in ancient things. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this in person. If you're reading this, it means the Brotherhood finally caught up with me. But they don't know about you. Use that advantage wisely. All my love, Uncle Theo. P.S. Check the inventory list carefully. Some of our most important pieces are disguised as worthless reproductions in the shop above. Right under their noses, just where they'd never think to look. Footsteps on the metal stairs interrupted my reading. But these were different from the heavy tread of the men searching upstairs. These steps were deliberate, confident. "Ms. Harrison." A woman's voice called softly. "I'm Diana Chen, Guild Security. We need to move quickly. The Brotherhood's team upstairs just called for backup." I turned to find an elegant Asian woman in her 50s, dressed like a museum curator but moving like someone with military training. She wore the Guild's pendant openly now. "How did you?" I began. "Your uncle activated the Guild's protocols the day before he died. We've been watching, waiting to see if you'd find your way down here." She gestured to the chest. "Do you understand what you've inherited?" "I'm starting to," I replied, thinking of all the times Uncle Theo had tested me, trained me without my knowing it. It's not just artifacts, is it? It's responsibility, knowledge, and power, Diana added gravely. Power that some would kill to control. The Brotherhood thinks these artifacts are the treasure, but your uncle understood the real value is in the knowledge they represent. Knowledge that could change everything or destroy everything in the wrong hands. More footsteps above. Angry voices. "They're pulling up the floorboards," Diana said tensely. "We have about 3 minutes before they find the entrance. We need to move the critical pieces now." "Are you ready to accept your inheritance, Ms. Harrison? Really accept it?" I looked around the room, at the artifacts that rewrote history, at Uncle Theo's lifetime of work, at the responsibility he prepared me for without my knowing it. I thought of my cousins up in their mansion, counting their money, having no idea of the real treasure they'd missed. "Yes," I said firmly. "Where do we start?" The next hour was a blur of activity as Diana's team evacuated key pieces through a secondary tunnel I'd never known existed. I memorized security protocols, passwords, and contact procedures. The Brotherhood found the entrance eventually, but by then we'd vanished with the most important items, leaving them with a room full of convincing duplicates. Hours later, in a secure guild facility, Diana finished briefing me on my new reality. Your uncle was one of our best, she said. He identified you as his successor years ago, but we had to be sure. Finding your way down there, decoding the mosaic, that was your final test. And if I failed? The Brotherhood would have found an empty room, and you would have inherited exactly what they think you did. A struggling antique shop. She smiled. But you didn't fail. Welcome to the guild, Ms. Harrison. That was 6 months ago. The shop still stands, still selling reproductions to unsuspecting customers. My cousins still laugh about my worthless inheritance at family gatherings. Let them laugh. Because now I know the truth. About Uncle Theo, about our family's legacy, about history itself. Every day, I learn more from the collection, unlocking secrets hidden in plain sight. The Brotherhood is still searching, of course. They always will be, but they're looking in the wrong places, just as they always have. Because the real treasures aren't in secret rooms or hidden vaults. They're scattered throughout the shop above, disguised as worthless trinkets, telling their stories to anyone who knows how to read them. Uncle Theo taught me well. Value isn't always what it seems. Sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones others overlook. And sometimes, the most important inheritance isn't what you get, it's what you become. Last week, a young girl visited the shop with her parents. While they browsed the expensive items in the front, she lingered by a dusty shelf of reproductions, studying their patterns with unusual intensity. I watched her trace the hidden symbols none of her family could see, and I smiled. Uncle Theo would have liked her. In a few years, once she's ready, I'll start teaching her what he taught me. Because that's the real purpose of the collection, not just to preserve knowledge, but to pass it on to those who can understand its true value. After all, every object has a story. You just have to know how to read it. And some stories are worth more than all the mansions in the world.